Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to Single Muslim Live. I'm your host and your Muslim expert, relationship expert, Fahima Mohammad. Today, I will going to be talking to you with regards to post-lockdown love. And I just want to remind all the audience that this is a live call-in show. Please do call into the studio on the standard rate on 01924231083, and we'll be taking any of your comments or questions with regards to finding love after lockdown. Again, that number is 01924231083, which is a standard charge from your landline and mobile telephone. You are also watching via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Sky internationally. We want to welcome all you dear viewers. We are here, obviously, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I would also like to invite, who is going to be my guest speaker today, invite you, Wajeeha Amin. Assalamu alaikum, Wajeeha. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I know that you are also a psychotherapist and coach, and obviously amongst many other things. So hopefully we're going to have lots of information for all you viewers out there who has any issues, challenges, any problems, any questions generally with regards to lockdown love. I mean, we are obviously easing out of lockdown at the moment, but it is still testing. And obviously the last 3 months has been an absolute difference and a complete change in lifestyle and norms, and we still haven't come back to the norms. So Wajeeha, in your sort of experience over the last 3 months, what has been the major challenge with regards to lockdown and people trying to still, find that relationship that they would like to desire for their future?
I think it's been a little bit of an eye-opener for everyone. I think we've changed, we've had to change, we've had to evolve, and I think it's kind of put a pause. Everyone's had to hit the pause button because we were leading such fast lives. Everyone's on the run, everyone's go, and on the side of that, it's okay, I want to get married, I need to find my life partner, and then all of a sudden that pause button has been hit, and it's like, oh, I'm confined in my home. So how is this even going to happen? So that anxiety around, oh, life is now put on hold, that search is put on hold.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And, I hope that people have evaluated and they've looked at the values that they've had in life and thought, how can I do this differently to how I was doing it before?
Yeah, you've highlighted quite a lot, and my takeaway from what you've said is there are very many different perspectives of, how people may view it. Of course, they probably have sat down reflecting on themselves and also maybe what's important, maybe that have probably put the brakes as to looking for a relationship. But the other side of the coin is maybe people actually started looking for a relationship thinking that, we need to figure out and prioritize what's important in our lives. So there are differences with people's stages and what they're actually maybe experiencing. What I do know and what I've heard from a lot of people, even though at the beginning it might not be that exciting, or for some people it has been, a bit of a break, but after a while, considering that we are in lockdown and, what are our main priorities, what is, the meaning and purpose of life, and everybody's online. And thank God for, SingleMuslim.com. I think, they're being quite busy with regards to people actually using this as a safe platform, even, prior to lockdown. I think a lot of people do actually meet online nowadays. They do actually find that it kind of like takes away any of the barriers that they might be facing and having. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, being online and speaking to somebody, do you think that provides some sort of positives, and what are the negatives?
I think it's added an option. It's definitely added a choice, and we are blessed that we have modern technology behind us to be able to make that transition from not being able to meet people to meeting someone. So I think it's fantastic that we've got that option. And what I have noticed is that people are more open about saying how they met. We met online, like a platform such as Single Muslims. So it's becoming easier for people to be able to be open and say that. And also it's a great starting point, because what you get, you've got an opportunity to meet many people. And it's a great starting point because you can start those conversations off. And once you've had those conversations, you can start building on, well, do we want to take this further?
Absolutely. I just want to remind the viewers out there, thank you so much again for watching, but the conversation can continue with me and Wajeeha, but you have an option to direct the conversation or join in the conversation. So if you want to, please do call in on the studio line, which is 019-24231-083. We'd love to hear what are your experiences, and if there are any questions. Wajeeha and myself do coach clients individually with regards to relationships, and especially now when our individuals are searching for love and they're looking to find the right partner. There's premarital courses that are available, but not widely spread, and not everybody actually goes to them, because I think relationships has changed. And we were talking even earlier about this as to the perception of relationships. And I think people are finding it as a struggle or maybe a difficulty is because they've got the old concepts when we need to upgrade the way in which we look at relationships today, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at your relationship style. We all have experiences of relationships, and it's really important to look at your experience of your relationship style and how is it functioning? How is it serving you? How is it serving you right now? And when you meet someone for the first time, or you've had a couple of conversations, that's a really good question to ask, is what is the relationship style that you've been brought up with? What are the roles and responsibilities within the household, and being clear about what you think the roles and responsibilities are within the household. Looking at communication style as well. How do you communicate? Talking about emotions as well, talking about how you're feeling. And what I find in the work that I do is that's lacking. That's not something Absolutely. That people are open and willing to talk about early on when you're getting to know someone. It's almost like something that's put on the side and is picked up at some point, and sometimes it's not even picked up because you get caught up in the whirlwind of all of it as well.
It's very interesting. I mean, you've literally opened up a Pandora's box here, because my mind is buzzing by everything that you've said. And it's amazing what you've highlighted there, because a lot of us use these words, but we don't actually know what the meaning is, even how to communicate. Something as simple as that. There's so many various ways of communication. And we talk about it. Oh, yes, we need to have communication, but people are really not trained and skilled, and you really need to be. I think also the other thing to add to what you're saying is, because I've had clients recently where they knew in finding relationships, they've kind of put that in the back burner because they've concentrated on their careers. Now they're thinking about finding relationships, and how do they go about it? They've never actually been in relationships. A lot of people, especially in our background and cultures, we don't look at relationships and dating as the Western world, and we shouldn't. We do have boundaries and clear guidelines, and that's why the show is also here to also put that in place. So whatever we're talking about is within guidelines of our Islamic faith teaching, because it is protection, and there are boundaries for our protection. So we need to obviously understand that. A lot of the people that are actually going out there, even talking online, they need to know that they actually have to put those boundaries upon themselves, and you can do that. And secondly, a lot of us are not aware of these, have a self-awareness even about, what are the questions we need to ask. We're only asking about even, if the person is praying, honest, and yeah, they are very vital, but it goes a lot deeper than that. So what kind of questions would you say that people need to ask, and how deep and how varied? Because even when you talk about relationship styles, a lot of people are probably thinking, what does that mean? Obviously, unless you're trained in it, unless you understand that concept, if you're into self-development, it's a lifetime investment. As you know, I've only come into it in the last few years, and I'm still learning. So what would you say? Obviously, you've got much more experience, background. So what would you actually advise some of the viewers right now? And before you answer, I just, again, want to remind you of the call, which is live, and you can actually speak to Wajeeha and myself on 019-24231-083. We'd love to hear your comments, your questions, and what are your thoughts right now, so we can actually give you some free coaching session, even if you wanted. Yeah. Go ahead, Wajeeha.
I think it's important to ask the question that you're afraid of asking. Something that you really want to know. And oftentimes people will say, oh, well, Wajeeha, if I ask that, I can ask that question. And what if they tell me, what I want to hear? And what I say is that don't ask the same question 3 times in 3 different places, you know, in 3 different times, because then that will give you clarity as to who that person is and how they're answering that. And then the questions that you're going to ask, make sure you know the answers for yourself too, because it's all well and fine asking deep questions to the person that you're getting to know, potentially, who would end up being your husband or your wife. But if you don't know the answer for yourself, then what was the point behind asking? What was the point behind asking that? And then also what that does is that it makes you indecisive, because then you're kind of blowing with the wind. So if you ask a question and that person kind of says, oh yeah, you know, this is what I would do, and then you're like, because you don't know the answer yourself, you're like, yeah, that's what I would do as well. And that can cause, you know, fundamentally, that's what's going to cause problems as you go further along in the relationship.
Yeah, no, that's so important, because a lot of us are wanting for the other partner to be in a particular way without even understanding ourselves first and knowing ourselves. And we need to ask these questions for ourselves first, and then only we can match what we really truly feel and know. But we cannot do that without the self-work, you know, first. Because a lot of the time it's like, I'm looking for this and I want this and I want that. And even some people that actually know themselves, you know, over time, you know, we do change, experiences around us, you know, things that happen around us, and, you know, lots of things that, you know, come into it. So I want the viewers to be aware of themselves first, and also that things do change over time. And for example, I want to be really practical, because I look at all the comments and I know everything. I may not be able to respond, and that's why we have these live shows, because, you know, people are thinking, you know, is this real? Is this really happening? Are we actually addressing issues here? We really are. And the fact that when people say that, you know, I'm looking for somebody and I want somebody and I want this and I want that, I mean, can you even, you know, people can just say yes. You know, what does that mean? If you're like, oh yes, I'm a religious, how do you define that? How does that, you know, come into play? When, you know, what are the examples of that in your life? And what are the things that you need to ask in order for you to gauge, like you said, ask in different ways, so that that comes back to you with those questions. For example, you know, religion and being, you know, sort of pious and, you know, practicing is not just also reading your 5 times Salah. And that's what people need to understand. Sometimes they are working themselves up to it, but, you know, the way they treat others, the way in which they make decisions, and the only way you're going to gauge how they make these decisions is to ask those questions and put them in these sort of scenarios to get that kind of feedback. So, you know, this show is really important, and, you know, I'm really passionate about it because I know how many people struggle, you know, in their relationships, especially because I do coach couples as well. And they've wasted years to even solve issues and problems. But the sooner you tackle it and the earlier that you do deal with these kind of questions around, you know, finding that partner, because as much as Islam gives us that, you know, amazing sort of briefing, we obviously, you know, Islam also tells us that we need to seek that knowledge, and knowledge in science, knowledge in psychology, which is what we're trying to do, is to understand that human behavior, so that when you understand that, you can actually, you know, be more empathetic, like how Islam says, have that sort of understanding, have that way of looking at different perspectives and having those lenses. So what are your thoughts about, you know, individuals that are saying, well, it doesn't work, I'm trying and I've got different avenues and, you know, things like that? Because these are very normal, you know, sort of like comments that I already see. Oh, it doesn't work and I've tried everything. And for firstly, you haven't tried everything. That's one thing for sure. We generalize, we delete, we distort information. That's one thing we learn in psychology too. So we need to understand that. What would be your advice to somebody who is saying, you know, I've just given up, I've got no hope, I've been trying for so long, I've been on even this app and, you know, I'm meeting people and, you know, I'm talking to them, but I'm not getting anywhere?
I think it's really important to step back and reflect on, well, why do you want to be married? First core question to ask yourself: why do you want to be married? And there is this sense of, you know, is it, do you want to be married because you're going to complete half your deen, or because you've got pressure on you that you're getting older, you need to get married, you need to be married? Or is it something that you inherently really want for yourself? So having that clarity for yourself first, and remembering also that your relationships are going to define the quality of your life. They're going to define the quality of your life. So what is the relationship you have with yourself first? What kind of relationship do you have with yourself first? Because you can't expect the other, your husband or wife, to define you. What is your identity? What makes you tick? The real cliche, what makes you tick? But actually, if you're struggling with that, then you need to spend some time. You need to spend some time on that. And then these scenarios, and I get this often, is, oh, I've tried everything. There's no decent guys out there. There's no decent women out there. And what I will say is that use now as a time to reevaluate. Yeah. And one thing that I'll share a story with you. I had I run a masterclass where I equip people with the tools to actually learn how to find, connect, and keep the right partner for them. And I had a lady call me, and she said, "Oh, Wajeeha, I've seen this, and I'm thinking of coming, but before I come, I want to ask you a question." And I said to her, "Yeah, fine. What's the question?" And she said, "Do you believe in miracles?" And I said to her, "Okay, before I answer that question, let me ask you, what's making you ask me if I believe in miracles?" She said, "Because I've tried everything and I don't think it's ever going to happen for me. And I need to come to the point where I just let it go." And I said to her, "I believe in miracles, and they're twofold. One is dua, tawakkal in Allah, and his plan for you, because his plan is greater than our plan, and action."
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She came, and alhamdulillah, she went on to get married. There's another story behind how she went on to get married, but she got married. And so what I say is, like, if you start losing that faith and that belief that it's going to happen for you, then you are going to keep hitting obstacles, And then also the other thing is that believing that you are worth it, that you can have a happy, healthy marriage, because that is one of the fundamentals of my work. Is I'm not, people confuse me. They think I'm a matchmaker, and I'm not a matchmaker. But what my work, my passion in my work is to help people to go on to have happy, healthy, long-term marriages, because that's what's lacking in our community. Happy, healthy marriages. People are married, behind closed doors. There's a wedding. Well, prior to lockdown, there was a wedding every weekend.
Yeah.
No,
I think, again, you've said so many things that, again, my mind is going in different directions, thinking about what you just said. And to be honest, it's really important that you've said that, because, again, these are real concerns. The first thing I want to obviously highlight is that, yes, being of our faith and background, we do definitely need to have that tawakkul. We do need to have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we also need to take that action forward. And also, when it comes to taking the action, never, ever give up hope. There's so many areas, and we as humans think that we've done it all. There's always no way. And again, coming across someone like yourself, for example, you show that way. And again, I'm the same. I always get people coming up to me, giving me their details, thinking I'm a matchmaker, but no, I'm just a catalyst for you to find your way. And I open up those doors and those perspectives. And usually it's really about fixing up yourself. And thinking about life from a different lens and looking at it from a different lens. And that's really important. Again, what you said about, looking at things from, where you take action. And again, even if you take action, you got to sometimes take that action and let it go. It cannot be there to be, that's what's going to bring you happiness. That's what's going to give you, and, your other half. I don't like that terminology, because you are whole and you are fine on your own. And I think we've got all these modern ways of thinking, or cliches, whether it's from the past or Hollywood, Bollywood movies, which is not realistic. And we're trying to bring that into our reality, and it doesn't exist. And even, in marriage, in Islam, it's actually translated as a shared struggle. So there are, challenges, but we need to be prepared for those challenges and understand those challenges, and use two people coming together. And sometimes the puzzle is not exactly, a perfect fit, but you work your way around it, and you're trying over time to adjust to two different people. Just like when you are in one family, all your siblings are from the same, upbringing, will always turn out differently. So imagine two separate people coming together. There's obviously going to be some sort of differences, and it's fine to have that too. But I think if we learn about ourselves more and learn about what it means to have relationships, and what is our meaning for those relationships, and why do we want to get married, not just to have somebody else for us, but to also be that somebody for the other. to have that consideration. I think it's really important. What you've said is so vital right now, because the youngsters are getting carried away, which is the fact of the fun factor of having a partnership when it's a lot more. And then when they enter it, they're like, I didn't expect it to be like this. So, you know, we need to do that. Again, dear viewers, thank you so much from wherever you're watching, whether it's Facebook and Sky TV or Twitter and YouTube. I want to thank you for actually watching right now. And, you know, again, if you want to participate in the conversation and direct us to whatever it is that you want us to talk about, because we can talk for a long time with Wajeeha and myself. We've got a lot of things to say, but you know what? It'll be really good to hear what your thoughts are. If you want to call us on 01924231083, we would be, you know, really happy to hear what your thoughts are. I mean, now we're talking about post-lockdown, obviously. There is obviously a barrier. Sometimes people are more anxious about meeting new people and worrying about, you know, doing that. So, you know, what would be the steps that they would take? I mean, what does it even mean, like love after lockdown? Because, you know, even though we've had a change, life is still continuing. We are easing out of it. So what is it, you know, what is that meaning to you?
I think it's, again, I feel quite excited with the fact that we've had the post-lockdown, in the sense that we've had the pause, and I think it's going to allow for space for trust, to use trust as a barometer to test out, you know, who this person is. And I think that the lines were starting to get a little bit blurred around what is an appropriate way of getting to know someone, what is an inappropriate way of getting to know someone. So this whole thing about having, you know, being socially distanced really creates that opportunity to get to know someone without the pressure. And also the other thing is that we can accelerate the length of time that we're getting to know someone. So when I work with my singles, I always say to them, don't be afraid to you know, ask the hardcore questions early. You don't have to, you know, don't wait because you're thinking, oh, I've got to build up a rapport. The key really to know is, do I feel safe with this person? When I'm speaking to them, do I feel safe with this person? The conversations that I've had with this person, does it give me space for growth? Will I be able to evolve in this relationship? You know, are we going to share similar values, similar goals in life? You know, sharing your aspirations and seeing how the other person responds to those aspirations. Because sometimes what you'll get is you say, well, you know, in a year's time or 2 years' time, I see myself setting up my own business, for instance. And the other person is like, no, that's not something that I feel connected to. Yeah. You've got your answer.
Absolutely. I mean, you did say something about what is appropriate, and I think it's really important, because we obviously, you know, we are doing the show again. I'm going to obviously, you know, say it again, that it is British Muslim TV. We are here talking to majority Muslims. We are actually having the show with regards to taking into consideration our faith. And we are talking openly with regards to bringing into today's psychology with the teachings of Islam. And in order for people to move forward in the correct manner, in the halal way, there's no such thing as dating. That's an English terminology, which is completely different to what we say. As much as we might use it as Muslims, I think we need to obviously step away from even those Western terminology, because it gives a different sort of meaning. And I think people are getting carried away with it, thinking that it's okay. But there are strict rules, as I've mentioned before, with regards to, you know, courting and being, you know, in the situation where you are going to actually meet somebody and, you know, try and have a conversation or whichever. So before we get to the break, I mean, we'll obviously go through with it a lot more detail. Now, when people are, you know, looking, for example, something online, or meeting somebody which is outside their family sort of unit, what are the safe ways of doing it in accordance to our faith, so that they are staying within the guidelines? And, you know, because that is also the first step of, you know, of barakah, it's blessing, when you are approaching something and doing something with, you know, the Islamic sort of like boundaries. So that's really important to me to highlight that, you know, whatever we're saying, even if you're talking to a sister or a brother, it's within that kind of respect What are your thoughts on that, Wajeeha?
I think it's really important to leave someone better off for having met you. So, you know, starting off as you mean to go on. So having that, you know, kindness, having that compassion, having that care. So treating each other with that that respect. I think it starts from the first message, from the first connection that you create. And then following on from that, again, safety aspect as well. So people letting someone know that you are meeting this person, you know, meeting in a public place. I mean, coffees and restaurants are out of the question now, but meeting in a public place and keeping those conversations very much clear as to why are we getting to know each other.
I think, you know what, I'm going to talk about this a lot more, but we're going to go into it a little bit more after the break. And thank you so much for everybody that's watching on Facebook, watching from all over the world. And thank you so much for your comments on Facebook. We will be back after the break and to continue with this, the show. And hopefully we'll hear from you with your calls. Take care and see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live. I'm your relationship expert, Fahima Mohammad, and I'm also joined by relationship coach, Wajeeha Amin. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
Wa alaikum assalam.
We had a really interesting first half of the show and we hope to continue. Before I do, I just want to acknowledge everybody that's watching around the globe and all the comments that are coming through on Facebook and YouTube. I know you're all saying you're single and you're looking for love, and this is why the show is here, because we are trying to help you out. We are not matchmakers. Unfortunately, I'd love to, you know, be that, but we are here as coaches, as professionals, to actually give you some sort of way of moving forward in life so that you can take what we're saying and sort of, you know, use that in that way, okay, so that you can actually, you know, develop certain ways of, you know, producing that in your style of finding that true love for yourself. We would love to talk, but to be honest, I really want to hear some of your voices, and it would be absolutely amazing to hear your comments and questions so that you can actually be part of the conversation and direct even some of the discussion. And you can do so by calling us directly live on 019-2423108. Which is standard network charges from your mobile and your landline. Again, that number is 019-2423108. I look forward to hearing some of you people calling in. I'd love to hear your voices. I know you commenting, you know, on the actual Facebook page and YouTube pages, but be really, really nice. But take advantage of, you know, Wajeeha, especially, you know, with her experience and anything that you want to, you know, question. You know, you have a coach here, two coaches here online to deal with any questions that you have and any comments, any concerns, any challenges that you're going through. We are obviously having a discussion about finding love post-lockdown. Yes, there's been an unprecedented sort of like circumstances that has hit all of us, and it's put us in some sort of like way of thinking and being in a different way. Some of it, you know, is reflection, some of it is good, and other things are probably holding us back. But, you know, we can still use this as a positive to move forward. And that's what we're trying to do. You know, in Islam, it's important for us to fulfill our duties. And part of that is finding your spouse and doing it in the correct form, doing it in the halal way. Wajeeha, as we were also mentioning before, with regards to finding your spouse, there is also the concern, and there's a difference with regards to the person that's finding their spouse and also involving their parents, and to what extent is that absolutely necessary? I mean, yes, we have to respect our parents in Islam, but as we know, relationships has changed, and maybe our parents look at it differently. Maybe there's cultural norms that come in between, but as Muslims, we know that unless the culture is in line with the teachings of Islam, then it's an obligation for you to marry if that person has taqwa, is practicing, so there isn't much real boundaries, but there's so many boundaries when it comes to our parents wanting one thing for us, and the person that's looking that probably has another idea. What's your experience on this?
I have worked with clients who have eventually met someone and then their parents are totally against the idea. And on the flip side, I've worked with clients who have, broached the subject with their parents, and they're, extremely happy for them. And I think it's important for you as an individual who is searching to know and have conviction in your choice. And if you know and have conviction in your choice, then the conversation is much easier to have with your parents, to let them, to discuss with them. But if you involve them within the process as well, it makes the journey slightly easier as well. And I think, times have changed. Yeah. And as you mentioned, I think if we stay rigid in culture, we're going to keep facing the problems that we're facing. And if we draw on, the Quran and the Sunnah, and we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the choices in the wives that he chose, divorcees, widows, Absolutely. They were taken care of. And now we're arriving in a state of play where divorcees and widows are left by the wayside. And I think, that's something as a community that we need to resolve, look at and support each other with.
Again, you've highlighted something very important, which we do sort of tend to not speak about openly. And a lot of people are sort of like having a taboo or a stigma against, men and women. I mean, unfortunately, it is more detrimental for women who is divorced to find relationships again, and they looked upon in a negative way, regardless of what, the reasons were for it. And they bear the brunt of that in a negative way, unfortunately. And so people need to be aware of that. So there are options out there. It's just that sometimes our expectations, our wants and needs are not in accordance, whether it's from our parents or ourselves. And Islam is very, very simple. And the boundaries are there for protection, as I've mentioned before, but the actual choice is quite wide. We put those filters upon ourselves due to culture, or due to our, filters, or due to the fact that we've always done it in a particular traditional way, and we want to stick to those ways, which is not even conforming to the Islamic, actual laws. So we need to open up our minds, and if we were to have these conversations with our parents, to involve them, to have that respect, to make them feel that they are being considered. For the next stage in their life, and the person that's getting married is going to be living with that that member for the rest of their lives. I've had clients come to me saying that they were manipulated by their parents to marry within their caste, culture, background, and years later they've dealt with it, and they've done it because they didn't want to upset their mum, for example. This is real scenarios, but they are absolutely miserable because they did not have their choice. And luckily for certain men, they might put up with that for a certain amount of time, but others, they leave their marriages even when it is after children and years, which is really detrimental. So when your first choice is not your own, be aware of that, and parents be aware of that, because what are you setting up for your child's future? And it does come back to you in many ways, and it can be detrimental if it's not dealt with in the right way. As you were also mentioning about finding love in sort of like the halal way. For example, I would say that, if we're looking online, of course there are boundaries because you're sitting there, on a screen, but don't forget, how you speak, how you address yourself, the things that you're going to say. There's also rulings for that. So you need to, obviously, like you said, you've got to have the haya, you've got to have the respect, you've got to have those, knowledge as to what you're allowed and what you're not allowed to say and speak and address within, the actual, Islamic way. And I think that's really important, because when you come across in that way, that again shows that individual is practicing because of how they approach you. So everything from the moment you reach someone, or that person reaches you, that is showing their characteristics, that's showing, their wants, their needs, their vision. All of these things are important. Again, dear viewers, thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much for watching on different platforms, even around the world globally. I know there's people watching from various countries right now, and I would just want to say I appreciate the fact that you're supporting this. And this is a show for yourselves, and you again can direct this, conversation and, tell me whatever it is that you want. That, the coach here, Wajeeha, and myself can actually help you, especially Wajeeha with, her having lots of experience and years behind her. If you do want to call into the studio and speak to her, it's 01924231083. You have a really amazing opportunity to speak to Wajeeha directly and ask any of your questions. So again, I'd like to go back to the fact that when we are online, again, there is always a barrier. But when we are meeting, what are the ways? Like I always say that, make people aware that people always say, well, when we're online, people are not serious. Well, then tell them that, you've got your mom, your brother, or somebody who knows who you're talking to, so that the other person is aware that you're serious. What about people that are saying, and this is a big one, by the way, that, and this is one of the comments that I actually read previously, that, Muslim women, and forgive me for the phrase that I'm saying, but this is something that we have to address, because these are the things that we are saying, that are, very much got high expectations. And, the terminology was gold diggers, because, they expect so much, they want so much. And to enter into a marriage, for a man nowadays, it's a lot. Do you think that's realistic? Or do you think that women also are changing in their roles, where they are actually more educated, they're working, they're very independent, and, men are not even maybe used to that idea that, there are more expectations? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's, yes, women are educating themselves. We've been given, alhamdulillah, we've always had that privilege in Islam. Education has always been something that's important for us as women, as men to gain. And yes, women are, educating themselves. They are excelling in their career. And I think it's important to remember that if we, and I'm not saying this is what women do or this is what men do, I'm generalizing here. If we keep searching for the materialistic things in life, that's where we're then facing difficulties. When you're speaking to someone, the key to identify is the characteristics that they hold, the values that they hold in life, because they may well come knocking on your door saying, I have a Mercedes and I have 3 houses. But once you're married, what happens when that house and that Mercedes disappears? What's left is the character, is the value. Yeah. So instead of asking, oh, what is your salary, and do you have a house, or do you have a car, and or what kind of car you drive, the core questions to really ask is, how do you deal with adversity? If you lost your job tomorrow, what would you do? And the answer to that will give you some insight into this person's character.
And that is so realistic right now, because everyone is facing, some sort of threat in this pandemic, especially when it comes to their careers. So like you said, it is a real factor. And it doesn't mean that someone who's married, with someone with a high paying job, and all of a sudden this has affected, thousands, if not millions of people worldwide, where they did have, the safety net, but even that's been taken away, where industries and economics have, shown that even the high flyers in like multi-million-dollar companies are now struggling. So again, does that really mean that your marriage is now broken? So yeah, definitely what you've said is so important for people to consider when they're entering. And I think this lockdown, like you said even before, is an actual wake-up call to your real core meaning and belief behind, what is it that you want to do when you enter into that marriage, and give it that real meaning. And it is more to do with then that, that expectation of materialistic world and consumerism, which we are faced in the, in the Western world, and we're carried away with. And this pause that you called it, which I think is an amazing way of describing lockdown, because with that pause comes reflection. With that pause comes a way of understanding oneself and meaning, and bringing it to life as to what's really important, and prioritizing that. So yeah, please go ahead.
I think too many people, and don't get me wrong, because this took me time. I had to go through the process myself. I didn't just wake up one day and think, oh yes, So this is something that I've learned over time, and I've experienced over time, and then I'm able to share, is that so many of us try to change our external world.
Yes.
And we don't even think that our external world needs work. And the moment you do that piece of work, that external world, work on that, your external world will start changing. Yeah, because there's been, like, if we look at the pandemic, what it's done is taken people from, having a salary to having no salary. Yeah. So how have they adapted? How have they dealt with that situation? And some people have dealt with it really creatively, and some people unfortunately are dealing with the trauma that it's brought to it. So really looking inwardly as to how do you deal with different situations, because then you can bring that to the table, because we're looking for companionship. We're saying, we're going to complete half our deen, but actually what's going to happen is that you're going to enter into a struggle. Yes. There's going to be a power struggle. There's going to be struggles left, right, and center. And what's going to determine the success of your marriage is how you deal with it together in a partnership. Yeah.
Now, again, you've also raised something which made me think about a psychologist that talked about the locus of control. I'm not aware if, you're probably aware of it, but anyone go and research that. It talks about an individual who actually, goes through life, whether or not, they are living it with the environment as their control, or they themselves, looking beyond that. And even in the Quran, there is a surah that says your own. Okay, I will come back to you, but I have a caller online. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. You're live on British Muslim TV. Can you hear me? I don't think he can hear me right now, but if you do, can you please call back? He's on air. Brother Mohammed, can you hear me? Okay, I think he's just dropped, but I'm hearing from the producers that the question is how Muslims are born offshore, living in the UK, actually find love. Well, the question really, I'm going to repeat the question, because basically the caller was asking about people that are living abroad and how can they find people that are from, for example, here, and if they're from abroad, how can they do that? Because there's a lot of prejudice against people that are from abroad. I have my answer, but I want you to answer first. Wajeeha, what's your thoughts on that?
I think, again, we're tainted with this list of our expectations of who this person is going to be. And then also it's tainted with bad stories.
Yeah.
So we're driven by fear then, so again, it's around identifying who this person is and really getting an understanding of what their values are, whether they share the same core values with yourself, rather than painting everyone with the same brush, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think also when people are saying they're coming from abroad looking for someone here, let's be real, okay? A lot of people are afraid that they're only coming for one thing, whether it is to, uplift themselves in a particular way, whether it's the status or being in a different country. So you need to make yourself clear. If you're saying you're from abroad, what is it that you're bringing to the table? Don't just say you're coming from abroad looking for somebody from, Canada, Europe, or whatever it is. Tell them, what is it about yourself? I think people are not making themselves clear. The intention has to be loud and clear so that it takes away any of the misconceptions as well. So it's got to be from both sides. A lot of us have to not have those sort of misconceptions and ask further as to why is it that you want to come here and marry, and what are your intentions for that, and what can you bring to the table, and we can meet halfway. And then the other person has to be clear and transparent about it too. Don't just say, I want to come here and I'm from this country and you're from another and this is what it is, especially when we are talking about people from back home, whether it's in the Middle East or Pakistan or India or anywhere like that, coming into Europe. Unfortunately, there is, a lot of people that have entered into marriages as well. And there are real stories that they've only come for one purpose, and one purpose only is for their own self, development in a status way. So when you're talking about, coming into a relationship, again, from both sides, it has to be clear. And like I was saying before, the caller tried to call. I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Brother Mohammed, for trying to call in. If there's anybody else that wants to call in, please do so. And hopefully we will be able to take your call. It's 01924 231 083. These are really serious questions because this is your life. This is your future. And this is also part of your deen, like we said. But again, you know, with the situation that's around us, in the Quran, it says that no condition will be changed around you unless you change the condition within yourself. So again, it starts for me with self-development, self-awareness, you know, having that insight for yourself first. And don't just think about, I want, I need, I require, you know, I'm not finding anyone. Think outside yourself. Think more than yourself. Think even something about, you know, if you had a daughter or a son, put yourself in the future and what would you like to sort of see them, you know, bring into that partner. You know, think about someone that's close to you, a sister, a sibling, a cousin, whatever it may be, and maybe put yourself in that situation when you're looking for somebody and think, how is it that, you know, I would like to, you know, see somebody who I love for me, and, you know, I need to be that person first. And I think it's really important that we do work on ourselves and we do say these things. Now, post-lockdown, there are still a lot of restrictions. And like you said, we cannot meet in coffee shops as much. And if we are, probably bringing our own plastic cups and saucers to be safe and clean. But regardless, you know, we're thinking that in time, you know, in the next few weeks or months or whatever, you know, we will be doing that. How would you go about advising somebody to meet someone, you know, whether it's face-to-face or online? And what are the questions? What are the things that they need to take even precautions for, especially for women? You know, what are they entering into? What are the things they need to take into consideration? Because, again, we are entering into times where not everybody is as serious. And that's why even people are reluctant to enter into relationships because they're scared of all the stories. What would you say about the stories that they hear in order for them to push past that? Actually, before I actually ask you that, can we have a caller? Sister Jabeen from London, Salaam Alaikum. You're live on British Muslim TV on the Single Muslim Show. Salaam Alaikum. Can you hear me? Sister Sabine, calling from London. Can you hear me? Okay, I cannot hear her. Can you hear me, Sister Sabine? If there are any issues, can you please let us know? Our lines are working perfectly fine. Just mute your television or whatever platform you're actually, you know, watching us from, because maybe that could be an interruption, because everything's working fine. I can hear the production team and I can hear the lines going, but unfortunately we're not hearing the actual person that's calling. So please do try again if you've actually got cut off. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me, Sister Sabine? No, I cannot hear you. Maybe send it via a comment. The query was, though, from the producer that's actually telling me right now. So she's seeking a spouse for her son. And she's asking, how do we go about looking for a spouse for our children? I think, especially, you know, during lockdown, I think it's a really, really important question. Could you maybe give some advice on that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important not to put the search on hold. I think it's important to keep going forward. Use everything that's available to you. You know, you've got the online platforms. You've still got word of mouth, friends, family. So keep searching, keep talking, and you know, have a telephone conversation first to get to know whether there's any kind of fundamentals that allow you to be able to move forward, and then arrange to have a face-to-face conversation, you know, a walk in the park, yeah, and then take it further from there. And it's nice to have the support of your family behind you, so then you can ask you know, sometimes we can self-sabotage and we can get in our own way and say, oh no, I don't think this person was right for me, or sometimes we can say, oh yes, this person is right for me. But having other people's opinions can sometimes be really helpful to help us make those choices as well. So yeah, no, keep going and keep using all the means that are available to get yourself out there, because otherwise then it's just going to be another reason for why not, and then you wait another month or another month or another month, and before you know it, another year has gone by.
No, that's very true. I think we sometimes forget that how much effort it does take, and it is something that you do not give up on. If your son or daughter is on board with you looking for them, then definitely do it. And even if they're not, sometimes if you present something to them because you know them quite well and you want to give them that option and you put the options out there. But again, to look for those options, you can actually speak to people. I think we also doubt the actual advantage and the power of actually just opening up and having conversations, amongst your network, whether it's in your ladies club or classes, or your auntie's tea, or your Quran lessons that you have, because I know a lot of ladies do get together on many occasions, and maybe we're not having the actual the weddings and the functions like before, but we can still go online and talk to each other. So have those conversations and put the word out there that you are looking for your son or daughter, and something will come from it, definitely. And again, as Wajeeha mentioned at the beginning, dua is really important. So and couple that with the action, it's really important. There are certain du'as out there for good spouses. There are certain things for the individual to do. Even Surah Baqarah is an amazing surah. I know it's long, but sometimes we're traveling to work still, or we're listening for an hour, we can put that in our headphones, we do other things. That is an amazing du'a and surah to actually go through, and there are shorter ones, so please do search for that. And all of that coupled with the other actions that you would do by going online or speaking to other people, and mixing and mingling in different sort of networks alongside your job. And don't make it the only call. You have to understand that you have to live life and let it go sometimes. And I just want to say thank you so much, Wajeeha. We have come to the end of the show. Unfortunately, it's gone by, and I've got so much more questions for you. But inshallah, thank you so much, for all your insights. And thank you so much for everyone that's been viewing this show right now on all the platforms that you are doing it through, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, and all the calls and everyone that's actually taken part. But definitely, Sister Wajeeha, it's been absolutely amazing to hear your insights.
Well, thank
you so much, Wajeeha. No, it's an absolute pleasure. You've given us so much food for thought. If there's any last things that you'd like to say before we end?
I would say carry on with your search. Have faith. Make lots and lots of dua. Take action, and just trust your intuition. And inshallah, watch it will fall into place. And use the platforms, use the different opportunities that are out there to find your partner.
Amazing and brilliant takeaway. Thank you so much for that, and I wish you luck, and inshallah we'll be back with another episode and another theme. And please do keep supporting SingleMuslim.com and watching British Muslim TV. We hope that we can answer your calls in the future as well, and I hope to see you in the next show. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.